Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 581 on Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2024. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week we'll be hearing about the power of our podcast and one bit of follow-up.
Bloody hell.
In new car news, we see the wrong lessons are still being learned. And in points of interest, the and finally is for all of you who have a special car. But first, 3 bits of follow-up this week, and I'll start with possibly the least exciting one, but quite an important one.
Possibly the least exciting story in quite a long time, to be honest.
And this is the news that the Financial Conduct Authority has allowed or will allow companies to start selling gap insurance, which is guaranteed asset protection insurance, again, if they can demonstrate they are meeting the new rules that have been put in place, which make it fairer, much fairer for consumers. This is all about insurance that guarantees any difference between what you were told your car would be worth at the end of a lease or PCP or something like that, to what it actually is by the time you get there. And as we've seen in recent months and years, that's quite important with some manufacturers choosing their pricing policy.
Similarly, it's the difference in price between what you've just paid for a car and then what it's worth 200 miles later or so if you have an accident. It's for topping up that amount, because naturally the insurance company, who have also sold you the gap insurance, will try to turn the key to the tune of many thousands of pounds, where you've really had like 200 miles out of it and then somebody else has smashed into you. It's for that too, as much as possibly more than the other.
They have approved 4 companies to recommence selling gap insurance, and they are checking over the details and information from other companies who wish to bring this back again.
This was all about the commission paid to the people who were selling you the insurance and whether or not it was fair. Many other companies not included in this list and not being investigated were allowed to continue selling gap insurance. It wasn't everyone must stop selling gap insurance. It was certain outlets.
Anyway, do you want to take us on to the follow-up that shows how incredibly influential the Motoring Podcast is, Alan?
Yes, absolutely, because last week we talked about the Spotify Car Thing, which is a small device which connects to your phone, which in turn connects to any sort of older car stereo, and allowed you to stream Spotify, should you wish to do such a thing. Spotify put this on the market. It was moderately successful, but then they removed it from the market again very, very quickly, deciding they didn't really want to do it and they wanted people to connect their phones. That could possibly be because, phones have more tracking devices and things in, but that's a terribly cynical angle to take.
Very cynical. Shame on you, Alan. Shame.
Yes, exactly. But the device was only out for a few months, but people who bought it loved it. Cost about $90. And then you'll remember last week we talked about Spotify just saying, no, on December the 9th, that's it. No more. We're just cutting it off. Please dispose of your device responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
That was the sum total of their responsibility that they were taking in all of this. Obviously, there's been an outcry over that. It is now possible to get a refund. They're not going to not brick the devices. They're still going to commit terrible crimes against the environment by adding lots of e-waste, which works just fine. There is now a long and complicated way that you can actually get some kind of refund back from Spotify.
Do you think, Alan, that has anything to do with the class action lawsuit that was filed with the US District Court in Southern District of New York, which claimed that Spotify misled customers for selling them a soon-to-be obsolete product and then not offering refunds, which happened on May the 28th?
I think so, yes.
Uh-huh.
I think that may well have something to do with it. They may well have given in anyway, but I think that will have tipped their hand. Obviously, Spotify cannot comment on said lawsuit.
No, of course not.
But Spotify's not having a great time right at the minute. They're trying to raise prices. They're annoying ad sellers. They're screwing people who provide content for them. This is a lot of stuff going back to bite Spotify right at the minute. I assume somebody wants them to make some money at some point, and it's not going very well.
They did apparently make a profit in the last quarter.
Did they?
Yes. I think that's one of the very first times they've ever managed that.
Probably. There's a lot of venture capital gone into Spotify.
Yes.
So we can move on, otherwise we sound bitter and nasty.
Let's get away from being too cynical.
A little bit, yes.
I am going to take us to London, actually, which feels a bit of a surprise considering this is going to be the home for the Horse joint venture, which, if you remember from a month or so ago, was the Renault-Geely joint venture to create hybrid and combustion engine technology they will use in their own companies, but also sell on to others.
London, great choice, of course. There are many theatres, lots of shops, lots of things that are a very desirable place for an executive to live and work and for their families to travel to. So it makes an awful lot of sense.
No, I think, Alan, you're wrong. It is completely an endorsement of the expertise and specialisms that we have in this country. And it is a correct place in which to have such a headquarters of an engineering feat that they wish to accomplish.
There are a lot of very good luxury goods shops.
Yeah. Okay. So we're dialing the cynicism right up this week. That's fair enough.
It's true. It's why stuff ends up in London. It's why it ends up in Paris. There is probably, I imagine, though, somebody from Geely will probably tell us that there are very many good reasons that it's in London. But overall, it's somewhere that people want to travel to. That has a large bearing on citing these kind of international things. It really does. As well as there is engineering expertise. There is, believe it or not, it's relatively stable. And, there's a lot of the skill set and nice offices and stuff which go along with these. But also it's somewhere people from abroad want to live.
Well, talking of places people from abroad are going to live, do you want to take us to Crewe?
Oh, boy. I set myself up for that one. Bentley has named its new chief executive. It is Frank-Stefan Walliser. He is former Porsche vehicle development chief. People saying good things about this. This is someone who obviously has shown their worth within the wider Volkswagen and Porsche group.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously fantastic. We all know the things he's worked on, such as the 918 Spider is the one that keeps getting quoted, as well as the 718, many of the current generations of 911, which obviously all the critics are out in force every time one of those is unveiled. Not. Obviously someone who's very good at his job.
Mm.
And this sounds like a fantastic, both attaboy for him and set of skills for Crewe as well, which should be very good and interesting.
Yes, I think him bringing his knowledge of electrification is a key thing.
That's very true, yeah.
Particularly putting it into models and into companies that hadn't done that previously. I think that's a key thing. It also actually, I'm maybe really, really grasping here, but gives me a little bit of hope of maybe Bentley back in some motorsport at some point, because he was the head of Porsche Motorsport.
I agree. It depends whether or not that's allowed by the higher ups, I would imagine.
Well, if they keep making the eye-watering profits that they do, I think they'll get a little bit of leeway.
Well, they have to keep supporting CARIAD somehow. But anyway, I think that's a really good, that's a good announcement. I know that we're within Volkswagen Group, we're very quick to point out when it's another middle-aged, grey-haired man.
Yes.
A bit like ourselves, to be honest, ending up in another board post in another Volkswagen company or in Volkswagen Group. And I think that this is an interesting change. I hope this works really well.
Yeah, he's got huge shoes to fill and to maintain the great strides that have been made. Okay, I'm going to take us to possibly our second most dry was the word I was going to use. Dry story that we've had in quite a while after the gap insurance. And this is the news that advisory fuel rates have now been released by HMRC. And staggeringly, now I know this won't affect everybody who listens to the show, but this is what happens for people who are using company cars or their own car and seeking reimbursement from a company. And HMRC says, right, this is the level we think for petrol cars at particular engine sizes, diesels, etc. And those have all gone up for ICE. But astonishingly, they've cut EV ones that already weren't making what it actually cost people to refuel, refill, re-energize their car. And now they're cutting the rate again. It is I am almost speechless with the incompetence and stupidity of this. At a time when you're trying to say we must have more EVs on the road, and business users are one of the primary drivers of that, and you're then saying, yeah, we're actually going to charge you to to do this thing that we're all meant to be doing. I'm flabbergasted, really.
Be aware that those are the advisory electric rates. Fleets can reimburse people at higher or even lower. If it's lower, then you can claim back on your tax return, but I'm sure that people don't know that. They won't. If it's higher than that, well, then there's a chance that HMRC is going to tax you on it. Yay for HMRC. Be aware that those are the advisory electric rates, as Andrew said, not the mileage allowance payments. Mileage allowance payments are much higher. They set at 45p for the first 10,000 miles that you drive for business over a year, and then 25 pence beyond that.
Yep.
That's different from the AFR scheme thing. I'm familiar with the MAP ones, but not with the AFR ones when it comes to real life usage. I think MAP is really where you're providing your own vehicle, and AFR is where the vehicle is being provided to you. You're just having to pay to use it.
You're shouldering the cost to get it to move. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, don't quote me on that. I'm not in a...
I'm sure
I'm
one of our listeners who actually knows this properly will confirm or correct us.
Yes.
In a very nice manner.
Great Wall. So Great Wall are currently importing the Aura range into the UK. They are closing their European office in Munich. They're going to move all of the headquartering back to home base in China. They're saying that this is because of the potential punitive tax on car imports and citing tough market conditions, etc. They'll close on the 31st of August. 100 jobs are lost. And yeah, they're still going to continue to import the Aura 03, which was formerly known as the Funky Cat. And they're expecting to launch the larger one, which is the 07. 07, formerly known as the Lightning Cat, in Germany and the UK very shortly.
Yeah, but they're also pausing, in inverted commas, for some time possibly, their expansion into other European markets that they had eyed up.
Worth saying though, Sweden, Ireland, Baltic countries, Bulgaria, they will be handled by local distributors rather than centrally by Great Wall Europe. And those local distributors will be directed by Great Wall in China, says Automotive News Europe, which I believe is one of the things that has made working for Great Wall in Europe a tricky proposition.
Right, I will now round out the first part of the show with the news that everybody leapt on last week, and that is that the Geneva Motor Show has been axed indefinitely. And the organisers have chosen to suggest that it was a lack of manufacturers' interest and nothing at all to do with the incredibly eye-watering cost to display there, let alone the wonderful hoteliers in the area.
And frankly, the way that they treated the manufacturers, they and the hoteliers and the rest of Geneva treated the manufacturers, in fact, treated everyone when the show had to be cancelled at the very last minute because of COVID. That's a major factor in that, which kind of brought it all to a head, I think.
They're still going to be doing the Qatar show.
Still going to be doing the Qatar one.
Which we'll still not be covering.
No. The thing about the Geneva show was that it wasn't, that it was great. All the journalists went, you went for 2 or 3 days. You saw all the new stuff.
You all got to moan about how much your feet hurt.
Yes, exactly. All that kind of stuff. Well, no, not so much at Geneva. That was one of the things that people liked about Geneva was it's all relatively compact. Frankfurt, on the other hand, whilst journalists were all coming home, then they would rejig all the displays and they would put all of the range for all of the cars on all of the stands, almost. And from the first Public Friday right through, then it was filled with people who wanted to see all of the cars that they were interested in and try them for size and decide what it was that they would go from a long list down to a short list of what they wanted to go and drive and test and all these kinds of things. It's one of these things that seem to be forgotten, that some of these shows, there's like 3 days at the beginning for press stuff and launches and things like that. There's another 10 days, 2 weeks of the public can visit and see things. And Geneva, I always went on the first Public Saturday, which was admittedly the busiest day of the lot, but it was so busy you could barely get around stands. And when I say you can barely get around stands, I don't mean like you can barely get around the Bentleys and the Bugattis and stuff, although there tend to be quite big crowds just to see these things. But I mean Audi, Volkswagen, Skoda, BMW, all of the sort of bread and butter brands across Europe, and especially in Switzerland, France, Germany, and Italy, and everywhere else with a decent train and plane connection straight into Geneva. There were people from all over trying the cars, poking at them, and seeing the new cars that they wanted to buy. And I think that gets very much forgotten about, and everybody's going, "Oh, I don't like motor shows." They're not really for journalists. You can see they can replace that quite easily. Mm-hmm. What they can't do is replace, virtual reality, blah, 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 does not replace going, touching, poking, whatever, cars. I mean, I know that, shopping for cars over here where I didn't necessarily know exactly what the finish was like in different types of car. I was more like a normal. And it was important to go out and poke things and sit in them and wander around CarMax, where there's a whole load of cars from loads of different manufacturers where I could poke at and decide what I liked and what I didn't like. And motor shows far more successfully achieved that. So I think it's a real shame to see them going. It was nice to see there's still regional motor shows here in the US, run by the manufacturers and the dealers. It was quite good to go down to the one in Rhode Island. But yeah, motor shows are actually about consumers. They're not really about the journalists.
Mm-hmm.
Big shame. That's a big loss to car buying people across a large swathe of Europe. Brought it upon themselves.
Yes.
Here endeth my lecture.
And also the first part of the show.
Yeah, which means it is, of course, time for Gilt Minute, the quick break in the show where we ask for a tad's financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel that the Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we do completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all that, and some of you do, so thank you very much, then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Thank you, everyone that does. Okay, new car news. And Alan, do you want to start us off with something that actually looks like it's a good thing for us all?
Yeah, the new Citroen C3 and EC3, you can tell which one's the electric one from those two, is about to launch in the UK. So it should come in July. The electric version will have a 199-mile-ish range for about £21,990. There will be a lower range one, a cheaper lower range one, and petrol powertrains to follow. But to start with, it'll be the EC3. It's £6,000 more expensive than the Dacia Spring, quite a bit more than Citroen Ami, but you will be able to take it on the motorway and go more than 40 miles an hour.
It is also a car.
It is also a car, not a quadricycle, exactly. At launch, you're getting that 44 kilowatt-hour battery, and it will have a single electric motor pushing out 111 horsepower through the front wheels. That means 0 to 62, if you care about it in this, then you probably won't, in about 11 seconds, top speed of 84 miles an hour, which is quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be two spec levels, a EC3 Plus, which comes with Apple Play and Android Auto, 10-inch touchscreen, comfort seats as opposed to uncomfortable seats.
I know, when I read that, I was thinking, hang on.
And all the safety aids you need to have these days, so your lane departure warning, reactive cruise control, blah, 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 blah. The C3 Max is above the Plus. It comes in at about £23,690, and you get reversing cameras, climate control, heaty steering wheel, heaty front seats, tinty windows, all of which, by the way, you laugh at normally, but in an electric car are quite useful, because the tinted windows keep the heat out, and heated front seats and heated steering wheel put the heat straight into your body without having to heat the entire cabin.
Mm-hmm.
You also get more safety equipment, live traffic information, and stuff like that. You can charge it up to 100 kilowatt. That means 20 to 80% in 26 minutes, which isn't bad at all.
It's very compelling package. Now, if we take it down to, say, even 165 miles as the range,
that's loads.
Depending on your usage and environmental conditions, etc., as we need to say on all these things, I think that's really impressive, because the Dacia Spring is really its competition at the moment, or you go up to the MG4. It's in between the two. And the Dacia Spring is constrained to a range much smaller than that.
It's also only 4-seater, not 5.
Yeah. And there will, I mean, you can see in the picture that there are areas that they have worked hard to save money in this EC3 and the C3. And that's That's fine. That's to be expected, surely, at this price point. Considering how much cars are costing, and just look on whether it's an ICE or an electric car, I think this really makes a compelling case for itself, and is going to have to do things very badly to not get good reviews and positive reaction from buyers. I mean, there's obviously at this point, there's no idea on what it would be monthlies, but it's not going to be 400 quid a month or anything like that.
No, this is going to be in the 200 or something, isn't it? I really like this. This is a car I would consider, and I would consider it over the spring, just for its proper carness, really. I think it's nice. Yeah.
Yep.
It's even got Citroen's advanced comfort hydraulic bump stops, so it's not all been cheapened right down. They have actually taken some time to make it interesting.
Looking forward to seeing more about that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to take us to Germany now, and Porsche, the new 911 and the GTS is going to get a 3.6-litre hybrid flat six, and that's what we're talking about here. That will result in around 534 brake horsepower.
Well, that's an up to, because that's the GTS, but yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about the rest of the range there. That's the one that gets the hybrid. Because it's hybrid, there will be no opportunity to have this in manual because of the positioning of all the technical wizardry underneath. But reading this Evo magazine article, there was only something like 3 that were sold in manual in America anyway. So they're not really thinking they're going to lose many sales as a result of. I think if you want a 911, you will take it with flappy paddles and the dual clutch, whatever it is that makes it change gear very quickly, much faster than you can if you use the clutch pedal in your hand.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As I said before, I'm not a driving god, so I find that many of the modern automatics PDK type setups are better than me.
Yeah. And it's going to be much nicer in just normal driving.
If you are totally outrageously outraged by that, then the 3-litre Carrera model, which will come out a little bit later, will be available still with a 7-speed manual. You will be able to do that. I wonder if they'll make the manual a cost option.
Why not?
It's Porsche. They'll make anything a cost option.
Well, talking of cost, the Carrera 2 GTS T Hybrid starts from only £132,600, which is only $12,600 more than the outgoing model. That's quite a lot of inflation. But, Alan, if one were to, I don't know, play with the configurator,
yes,
could one add significantly to the cost?
Well, yes, you could have it in a colour.
Oh, okay.
I really noticed this as an article linked in the show notes, as always. It's by Bradley Brownell. It's on from Jalopnik, and it's about the costs of adding a colour. Now, we've joked for years about colour tax whenever we've had special editions. And, back in the days when we used to have the time to do press cars any justice, or were like on the same continent as the press cars, then we would always joke about colour tax. And Porsche really have, with this, they've grabbed onto that and they have followed it. For a long, long time, you got basically 4 colours for free, included with the cost of your Porsche. You had white, you had black, you had Guards Red, which is red, and you had some form of yellow, flat yellow as well, was the 4 included colour. Now you literally get black or white in flat. You can then go to shades, as they call it in the configurator, and you get a choice of metallic black or 3 silvery greys, and that costs you £1,068. These are the UK prices. You can then move up to Dreams, which gets you Guards Red, which, remember, for about 30 years has been free. You can get the Carmine Red, which is the color, which is nice. You can get a yellow metallic. You can get the bright, sort of ranges like Lugano Blue, and you can get Gentian Blue metallic. And those are only going to cost you £1,700. After that, you can go for things like Slate Grey Neo, Crayon, the pale grey, which is the flat grey, or the Shade Green Metallic. And those will set you back a mere £3,234 on top of your already £12,500 more expensive Carrera GTS. And then after that, if that's not good enough, then we've got paint to sample for a mere £9,026.
Well, that's cheaper in the UK, because in America, that's $14,190.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Tax and whatever else gets lumped on.
Yes.
But what happens if you want to paint to sample? Do you get that option in the UK?
Yes, you do. £9,026.
No, that's the prep for paint to sample. What about
No,
paint
this
to
one,
sample?
it just says paint to sample. Sorry,
Oh,
the
okay.
UK configurator just says paint to sample. I know the US one gives you a choice of two.
Yeah, the US prep to paint to sample is $14,000.
Yeah, I have no idea
paint
what
to
that is.
sample, I hope everyone's sitting down, $31,060.
I do wonder if a lot of that is to do with the way that cars are generally sold in the US as opposed to sold in the UK and Europe. In that once you have something which is metallic fuchsia, it might be a little bit hard to sell on because people normally will order stuff up in advance. Dealers will order stuff up in advance. People will walk in and buy straight from the dealer because, it's America. So your every whim must be fulfilled immediately. Whereas in Europe, we're much more likely to order it, wait for it, and then take it, basically. But I do wonder if there's a certain amount of insurance for the dealers in that.
Possibly. Yeah.
But otherwise, it looks awesome. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic to drive, and I really, really like it. But yeah, with us wittering on for most of a decade about colour tax, it did give me a chuckle whenever I saw other people flagging that.
I am becoming a little bit bored of price gouging in certain areas.
Porsche have always done that. Sorry. It's if you want adaptive cruise control, which basically comes on everything here in the US, then again, it's an option on a 911. Just so you paid all that, you don't get adaptive cruise control. You don't get electric folding wing mirrors. You don't. And this is the bit where Porsche's always been like that. But this is where people say they compare prices between the UK and the US, obviously, and they don't realize all the stuff which you just don't get over here, which is one of the reasons why the list prices before tax, registration, and blah are so much lower.
Yes.
So stop doing that, everyone. It's annoying. It's wrong.
Because you've really enjoyed that aspect of American life.
Oh, I love it daily.
Anyway, I am going to stick with Germany and take us to the BMW 3 Series, which has allegedly been updated externally. Blink it and you'll miss it, I feel. But also internally and in terms of technology. We are now going to have the redesigned bumpers, side sills, and there are new 19-inch alloy wheels, which I am looking at them. I think Alan will love immensely, especially if he had to clean them.
Up until the first pothole.
Yeah.
They are really nice, actually.
And they are going to also, which is possibly the thing that has caught the imagination of most, no longer going to sell the M3 as a two-wheel drive. It will only be as X-Drive.
I think the thing that really people will notice most of all is they are not selling any diesel versions at all now.
Yeah. That's okay because, well, not so bad because the 330e hybrid, plug-in hybrid, has got a new larger 19.5 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery that will allow up to 63 miles on electric power alone. Now, that's one of the things, people are saying this now, oh, look how far the hybrids will go on their own. That is one of the things that the EU has regulated in and said, no, we need significant EV mileage, please. And the car manufacturers have reacted. And I think us as the consumers are now getting a much better product.
Yes, I think we're benefiting from that. I also think a certain amount of it is there's a lot of experience now that this is the second or third generation of these.
Yeah.
Manufacturers do understand more the use cases they can optimize for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a challenge with plug-in hybrids, which some people have done instead.
No.
As long as people use it that way and they actually do plug it in and charge it.
It's great. I mean, we said this years ago. It's a great gateway into full EV ownership.
Yeah, it lets you push the boundaries of what you actually need without
the fear.
Without the fear, yeah, exactly. Without the range anxiety. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Back to the BMW, though, just briefly. The 3 Series will start from £39,045 in 320i saloon form and will go up to a range topping for the M340i of £57,845, again, before you put any extravagant colours or extras on it.
There are two new colours, though.
There are, yes.
There's a red and a blue. There you go.
The red looks really nice.
It is. It's a lovely colour. That's been available in other models, I'm sure. Every now and again, I spec up an i4 that's either that or it's green. There's a point, by the way, from the 911 story. He says, jumping back to, there was no aventurine green listed at the minute from the colours.
That's rubbish.
Which is my favourite colour.
Poor. Sorry, it's poor, not rubbish. It's a very poor decision on Porsche's part.
It's a poor decision on Porsche's part. It's rubbish for the consumer.
Yes.
Yeah. Next up, Jeep is about to launch its second electric vehicle. Its first electric vehicle, of course, being the Avenger, which is only available outside of the US. The Avenger is very small. This is going for the opposite end. This is going to be a Wagoneer S. According to Autocar, it will blend an upmarket design focus with sports car levels of performance in a bid to take on the Tesla Model Y. Well, it wins against the Tesla Model Y, first of all, by not looking like an inflated whale. Let's tick that one off straight away.
I do have to say, though, yes, I totally agree with you. It doesn't look like
the illuminated grille is rubbish.
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. I just think it looks a bit generic, and there's not a lot that makes it look like a Jeep.
I think that the photos that are shown, which are obviously given out as the press photos, are shown in this Autocar story, where it is just like vehicle against white background in studio, are pretty grim.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
If you go to Jeep.com and go to the US Jeep site,
okay,
there are many, many much better photos of it and the interior and, showing it in situations and stuff. And it is much better looking. It is, of course, it's a Wagoneer end, so it's very much more of the Grand Cherokee style Jeep as opposed to the Wrangler style Jeep.
Yeah.
So the little Jeeps all have the far more Wrangleriness, whereas the big Jeeps are moved on from the Cherokee and the Grand Cherokee. Wagoneer, there's already a Wagoneer and a Grand Wagoneer for sale in North America, which are
good God, how big's the Grand Wagoneer?
It's very big. It is quite large. They are citing it to police forces and stuff as a bit smaller than a Suburban. But you're getting into the kind of Chevy Tahoe type zone. GMC, the shorter Suburbans and Tahoes and that kind of stuff. It is quite big. And of course, seats 8 or whatever,
yes,
with some room for luggage and all these kind of things. One of the things that's interesting about Wagoneer is that this is the first one which actually says Jeep on the outside. They generally don't. They generally just say Wagoneer across the bonnet and across the tail as well. And this sort of move to Range Roverize them compared to, if you were to put it, what they seem to be trying to do is trying to make these like a Range Rover as opposed to a Discovery or whatever it is JLR's brand house contains. So your normal Jeeps are like your Discoveries, your Wranglers like your Defender,
okay,
and the Wagoneers are like a Range Rover.
All right, I got you. Well, on that front then, this is coming to the UK early next year.
Yeah.
That, I think, is, as far as we know, is still ahead of the electric Range Rover that is allegedly due next year.
Yeah, so this is going to be Range Rover Sport competition, I would say.
It's going to take more sales from JLR because JLR just can't get a product out.
I don't know. It is Stellantis and it is Jeep, and Jeep don't have very many dealers these days, and I don't know how far this will go. You can pre-order this in the US. I could order it from the Chrysler and Jeep dealer around the corner, and it would cost me $70,200 as my starting MSRP. Of course, that's before tax, registration, and any other things that the dealer decides they want to add in, like paperwork fees and all that guff. That's the $70,200. That's what it says here. Imagine in the UK, it's probably going to come in at around the same, but in pounds, or maybe about £75,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's Range Rover Sport type zone.
Quickly, just to run through a couple of specs. They're claiming a maximum range of 300 miles on 400-volt architecture. Whilst they haven't given out maximum charging speed, they reckon between 5 and 80% charge will take 28 minutes. I think for someone in that market, they will certainly look at it because there isn't that many options in the UK at the moment.
No. Well, and definitely worth a look. These are nice. One of my colleagues has a Grand Cherokee. I was in it recently. Really nicely finished inside. It's a little bit American luxury, so sort of dark glossy wood and leather. But that's great. It's not trying to pretend to be German. That's always a win as far as I'm concerned. Worth a wee look if you're in that kind of market.
Now I will take us to points of interest, and I'm going to start with the lunchtime read from Driven to Right, whose tagline is still the world's least influential motoring site, which is a fib and a lie.
Totally. Because this is a fantastic piece by Patrick Lecan about Velsatis and the history and how it came to be and making of it and stuff. And it's got all the great press pictures, plus a few more, and it tells you all about the history of it. And one of the most beautiful concept cars of the 1990s, isn't it? Yeah, and I also really like that there's a log about the very end of the 1990s. There's a log at the bottom of who designed the exterior, the interior, directed the project, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There is a sort of whole bit at the end to just list the whole team that was involved with it.
Yeah, and other elements to help explain what it was about and what would go in to make it up. There's also some fabulous photographs. There's one photograph that really keeps sticking out to me because they're on sort of like slideshows, quite a lot of these. And there's one where there's the concept vehicle in the foreground in golden hour as well. The light is amazing. And in the background is a building whose roof is very much mirroring the front of the car up over to the top, over the windscreen and to the top of the roof, which has obviously deliberately been picked. But I just think is the level of detail and effort they went to show this concept off was amazing.
I like the pyramid, cube, and cylinder sitting in the middle of a quarry somewhere. Is my absolute favorite. It is the most bizarre 1990s Renault press picture thing. There isn't a skimpy lady in a silver spacesuit standing nearby is a wonder from that age of French press picture.
But my word, what a gorgeous car that was.
Yes, really stunning.
Okay, now we'll move to List of the Week, and this is from Hagerty, and it is titled BIY, 10 Great Classic Car Kits. And this is, I wouldn't say, considering my dad bought an awful lot of kit car magazines in the 80s, which I used to read through religiously, I wouldn't agree with all the ones on here, and I think they've missed out quite a few, but they are special nonetheless. Alan, is there one here that looks a little bit like a car that you may possibly have been able to get from a manufacturer at one point that stands out above all the others?
There are two here that really stand out for me, and I'm trying to choose one of them. And yeah, okay, I'm going to take the easy route out. I'm going to choose the Midas.
Okay.
The Midas, they did a bronze, a silver, and a gold, but, Gordon Murray had one. That's a pretty good way of doing it for me. I've always really liked the Midas. I thought it was nice. The later versions with the more fed-in headlamps, I believe, were designed or at least restyled and tweaked by Peter Stevens. I could be wrong on that. Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites. Definitely one of the later ones rather than the earlier ones, though.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
There is 9 others for you to check out. The link in the show notes and see if any really leap for you, the listener, to that you would go, yeah, that's the one for me.
Yeah.
Just a trip down memory lane, actually, seeing all these, particularly the black and white photos.
All I can say is that the magazine's definitely got better with colour photos.
Yes. Do you want to take us to the and finally?
And finally this week is announcing that Hot Wheels is about to start its Legends Tour of the UK 2024. So, of course, just as they have done for the last couple of years, if you have an awesome car, this is your opportunity to have it turned into a proper, genuine, 100% Hot Wheels model.
Yeah.
Last year, it was the awesome MGB GT with the sort of flower motifs and everything, which is just so cool. The detailing is amazing on it. The new live event we hosted will be at the Gravity Show at the NEC, is where it's going to start off. The judging of the 3 finalists will take place on August the 25th. In between now and then, go to hotwheellegendstour.co.uk. Link is over in the show notes if you want to enter your awesome car for that. There have been some great ones.
Yeah.
Absolutely great ones.
And if you remember, we covered the 2023 winner, which was that MX-5, that the more you looked at it, the more special it became because you spotted all the details.
I think that's the case with, and the year before it was the Volvo P1800 dragster, which was from the UK. And again, the more you look, the more you see of these. These cars are winning not just because they look good from a distance, but because of the fantastic attention to detail and work that the owners have put into it, and the imagination that's gone into them as well.
Yeah,
genius stuff.
Glad it's back.
Mm-hmm. Shows that all is right with the world.
Well, it gives us something fun to look forward to.
Exactly.
We need that at the moment. Well, I do anyway. I don't know about anyone else.
Quick parish note. People have said that if you're trying to listen to older episodes of the podcast, then sometimes in some players it's not necessarily working, which is something we've been able to replicate. We do have a support ticket in with the numbers provider from that period, which is where the challenge is. We'll sort it as soon as we can. We're on it. It's, as usual, the hardest part of podcasting is wrangling with the RSS feed, and this is an RSS wrangling challenge.
But thank you for letting us know. And if anybody ever finds any problems or anything, let us know, because there's a chance we don't know about it, and we can't fix it if we don't know.
We don't often go back and listen to ourselves 3 or 4 years ago.
No.
Bad enough listening to myself today.
No, but there is a lot of people that do. And that's really, actually, thank you for that.
Yeah. Especially special editions and stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you. That's it, I think. Yep. Good.
So.
Everyone, don't forget that between now and next week, you can give us any feedback. Share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is if you search for Crack Windscreen on Mastodon or Twitter, you'll find me there. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well, where I go by my actual name. And Alan, if people want to get in touch with you personally, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, whatever. Basically all the socials where I'm at AJP Bradley. That's BradLey. We'll be back soon. Until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.